Okay, quiet. I'll hang out, but you gotta be quiet, alright? Alright? Everybody be quiet. Chilly out, so Sarah put their little fuzzy hoodies on. Oh my god. I was too sick to do much, so I built that tree fort for him the other day, and we slapped up that ramp. These animals are frickin' characters, I'll tell you what. They scream their guts out. If you don't, if you leave without them, they don't let them run around. We kind of had to make this pen for them because this neighbors, I mean, all our neighbors are great. I don't even know if they watch this or not, but they're great. But unfortunately, we had some of our neighbors keep bringing their kids or young children down to the end of our driveway. They just hang at the end of our driveway until finally our animals go up to the driveway and we're not around or whatever. And they leave, and these guys will leave with them. And it's kind of Sarah finally kind of snapped the other day because she's inside doing whatever, and she looks out the window and she's got to go half a mile to go get the goats and bring them home again. It was happening every day, so I ended up making this secure pen for them. What are you doing? Quit chewing on my jacket. And here they are. And they're not too happy that they're not free roaming anymore. They were running around the yard, no problem, not going anywhere, but any dog gets a hold of them, they'll wring its neck in a second. And then I'd have to live without an aftermath at home, right? Now, what do we got? Oh, shit, I had to charge my battery up. Oh well. I'm going to keep going from the new stack down right now, just because my notes are a little unorganized. And I find I'm reading a handful for the second time by accident. I don't know why, and I got to go in there and check it out. Steve, you did a good job and you appreciate it. Working hard to stay alive and compile as much information as I can to help with your puzzle before I die. Yes, the government lies and all the other shit you're talking about seeing. Something you said today and an email shared that impacted me. A question civilians always forget to ask when faced with several topics, including Sabe and skinwalkers and top-level security clearance. Even presidents and big money, power-seeking bastards cannot know or see. What government hides is related to control, power, money. Same shit all the time. What IMF and World Economic Forum hide and why is the same. Shit. Now to help your puzzle beyond the topic at hand but completely connected. Ask yourself this. What are the Sabe hiding and why? Take all the subjects to where people have been silenced through fear, prison, and death since 15th of May 2009 by government and powerful entities. Why do people, creatures, and entities who have abilities and strengths way beyond what most of our weapons can handle, why do they hide it all? This goes beyond Sabe, skinwalkers, paranormal, hyperdimensions, UFO, and other topics people mock and scoff at. They have more to hide than our criminal politicians. You have been protected, Steve. You are still protected from skinwalkers, paranormal, and similar. However, we are not protected from government and wicked people strutting arrogantly and using whatever power they can to end freedom. I know you're busy, just wanted to update you. I'm still alive. Several of my people are dead, and now my wife is dying. We are forced to leave our home. Be careful, brother, and say hi to Dave P. for me. For us, next time, y'all talk. All right. You gotta email me again with more emails previous to this, alright? I'm not exactly certain who this came from, but it sounds interesting to me. Somebody knows some things. Hey guys. Another new one coming right up here. Little ding-dongs. Why are you doing that? You've never chewed in my clothing before. Something off in Willamette, National Forest, Washington. My husband and I went on a camping trip in July 2021 in the Willamette Forest. This has been a long-awaited trip as I've been asking to go camping here for a little over a year since I've driven through it many times on my trips to see my family in Nevada. However, this trip will turn out to be the first and last time we ever go camping here. I'm very glad we didn't have our children or dog with us during this trip. We didn't have a set camping spot, but I had called the ranger station ahead to ask where the dispersal camping locations were. I took note of the special spot that I thought would be ideal, as it was directly across the highway from Salt Creek Falls, which was our main attraction for going. This spot wound up being the only option for us since most spots were already taken. My husband was hesitant about the area as we started up the road, being worried that it wasn't a spot we could camp at, but I'd gotten specific directions from the ranger and felt confident that this was the spot. The road forked, and on one side was what looked like an old abandoned logging site, and the other was a road that seemed to go deep into a very thickly forested and hardly traveled dirt road. We took that dirt road up a ways and discovered what looked like a very old and overgrown road down by a camping spot. I thought it was perfect. We noticed fairly quickly that the place felt off. It took me a while to figure out why. There were no animal sounds, not a single animal to be seen or heard. We also felt like we were being watched. We quickly decided neither of us would be going anywhere without the other. The first night we put a bag of our trash, steak packaging and other food scraps, tied to a tree a safe distance away from our site in case it attracted anything. We didn't get a wink of sleep that night. We heard a couple of things walking around the site, tapping, and I swear something came right next to the vehicle at one point. We were sleeping in the vehicle. Anytime I felt it was getting too close, I'd blast my high beams and sound the truck alarm. I was not messing around. Anytime either of us had to go to the bathroom, we turned on the truck brights and stick together. The next morning, once we felt comfortable enough, we decided to get out and make breakfast. There were no tracks anywhere, only our own, and nothing touched our trash bag. At this point, I was severely spooked. I couldn't wrap my head around everything that happened that night, but leaving no tracks, and if it was an animal, why wouldn't it go for the trash? The trash was not up a tree, simply next to it. My husband tried convincing me to leave early, so we didn't have another night of that, but I was pissed. We hardly get time to ourselves, and we had been planning this for too long. We agreed to try one more night. The second day, we left the campsite and explored the other areas to see if we could at least change campsites, but there was nothing. We at least got away from it for a while to have fun for the day. Towards the end of the day, we got back and decided not be out once it was dark. I should also note that there are still no animals to be seen or heard here. We heard them in other areas, but not at that site. That night wound up being a ramped up version of the night before, but weirder. We decided to put on a movie on our computer to help distract us, hopefully help us sleep. Problem was, our external hard drive had mysteriously disappeared. I knew we brought it, but it was now gone. I went through everything in the truck more than once and was growing more and more frustrated the longer I couldn't find it. My husband also attempted to find it, to no avail. I finally gave up and we played some card games instead. A while later, I went to put everything away for bed and the damn thing suddenly appeared in front of me like it had been there all along. I'm thoroughly convinced something or someone was messing with me. No, it wasn't my husband. He liked sleeping with me. My husband and I both kind of laughed it off and decided to watch a movie for bed. He had quickly fallen asleep, but I had no such luck. Thoughts of the night before, the hard drive, and the lack of animal activity had me spooked. Too spooked. The sounds of walking and tapping noises seemed to be even closer to the vehicle this night. I didn't want to go outside at all, but at one point could not wait any longer. I woke my husband, who started awake. I smelled smoke for a second there, sorry. I woke my husband, who startled awake, and said he'd had a nightmare that someone was trying to take us. We went outside anyway, though, and quickly took care of business, the entire time feeling on edge like we were being watched. Once we were back inside the vehicle, I decided to see if I could see anything when the noises would start. I never could see anything making the noises. At one point, I looked up towards the passenger window and saw a handprint on the window. I couldn't wipe it off from the inside of the vehicle either. I was severely spooked. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. When it was the morning, I could hardly bring myself to step outside. I was so shaken. My husband and I agreed to quickly pack up, making sure not to leave any trash, and leave. As we were leaving, I noticed a log slightly up a hill that was completely white, not birch. And know some fungus can cause this, but it didn't look natural. It looked painted. I'm not sure if this is nothing or not, but it seemed odd to me. We were in such a hurry to leave that place, we didn't even bother making coffee. Never going back there again. Not sure what was out there watching us and terrifying us, but we felt we were not welcome. A separate occurrence in November. I was by myself, headed home from one of my trips in Nevada with a truck bed full of boxes of items. As I was getting through the Mount Hood Pass, I needed to stop and relieve myself. I knew I would need to stop for gas very soon as it was blinking on empty, and I remembered there was a gas station a few more miles up. My phone was also at 5% and had no service. I couldn't wait any longer and pulled over next to what looked like a fenced-in construction area. I simply hopped over to the passenger door as it was dark and I didn't want to risk getting out so close to the highway. This is a bit embarrassing and probably everyone's nightmare. As I was relieving myself, I suddenly noticed a large shadow moving towards me and could distinctly hear the gravel crunching from walking getting louder as it was getting closer. My heart leapt into my throat, and I have never pulled my pants up so fast. I launched myself up into the truck and slammed down the lock button and very quickly jumped into the driver's seat, then just as quickly peeled out of there. I didn't even bother to look at and see who or what it was. I was so terrified. I've literally never been more terrified in my life. I was shaking so bad, it was hard to drive. About 1 minute into driving, I heard a bump on the truck. There was no bump in the road. I looked in the rearview mirror, didn't see anything in the road or behind me. Just a couple more minutes to convince myself I needed to pull over and make sure I didn't lose a box, especially for safety of others on the road. When I did pull over, I waited a minute, checking all my mirrors and deciding how I was going to get out. I know, logically, whatever had been at the previous stop couldn't be here now, but I was too terrified still to really think about that. I decided not to open the door, but only roll down the window and use my flashlight to look at the boxes. I could see none of them had escaped and quickly got back on the road. I still can't help but feel like I had not reacted so quickly or done anything differently. I might not have made it home that night. I decided not to take the road at night ever again. Something I feel needs mentioning is that I've gone camping many times in my life. Grew up on a ranch, learned to shoot young, and I've never been afraid to camp or to get out of my vehicle before, and it has since not happened again. Granted, I haven't been to those locations since earlier. Either way, I just feel if anyone has had similar experiences in those areas, I'd like them to know they aren't the only ones, and we need to get more information put there for everyone's safety. Thank you for taking the time to read this. Greatly appreciate you putting more information out there. I myself have learned so much watching your videos, and will be making sure my children are aware of the other dangers out there that we weren't taught growing up, or rather had it laughed about and told it was all fake, made up hippie stuff. Feel free to use my name, Ariel Mitchell. Ariel, absolutely appreciate what you sent, and especially with your closing words. It's time. It's the cat's out of the bag. It's been out for a long time. It's time to teach the kids. You better teach everybody and be honest with them. If anybody today actually thinks that mainstream media, national news channels of any country is honest with us, holy shit, I got an iceberg to sell you and it's in Texas right now. You know what I mean? So amazing. It's not a question about whether or not being lied to. It's just amazing to me that we are. I don't get it. I kind of get it, but just all right, people want power. Okay, you want power. You got power. There you go. You got it. You got millions of dollars. Why do you need more? Why do you need more power? Why do you need to control people even more? I don't get it. I do get it. It's becoming more and more clear by the day, but it's frustrating, right? It's annoying. Anyways, what else do we got? Get the goats. Alright, here goes another one. Marcus Red. This is all new in the inbox, alright, you guys? Cherokee Elder and my own experiences. North Carolina, South Carolina. Dear Steve, my name is Josh G, and I am from and currently live in the mountains of western North Carolina. 23 years old. I've been fishing all across western North Carolina as well as hiking all over the Blue Ridge Parkway with my father looking for rare plants as a kid, as well as getting a degree in fish and wildlife management. So I'm very up to date on the plants and fauna that are here in the mountains. I've been a long-time listener to your channel and truly grateful to find a place with real true knowledge from the people and not from the scumbags that are lying and spreading fear to us on a daily basis through what they call news. So thank you, Steve. Thank you for sharing that. And now one of the reasons that I'm writing to you and the people is to tell my own accounts and experiences, as well as some knowledge that was just passed on to me from a Cherokee elder. Let's start with my experiences first, and how I became so fascinated by the unknown from an early age. Every Sunday from the time I was born until my grandmother got sick and had to come live with us before she passed, we'd all go visit her an hour south of us near Table Rock State Park, South Carolina. Only 30 minutes or so from Greenville, South Carolina. We'd get there, eat, and then after that I was free to go play and explore. This first experience is one of the earliest memories I have to date, and still remember like I was there yesterday. It had to be more than 3 to 4 years old at the time. I had an old swing set right in the front yard under the black walnut trees, and spitting distance from the porch of the old white farmhouse. And every day I was there, I would go play on this swing set by myself as either my parents and or grandparents sat on the porch and watched me. But I remember on this day, they stayed inside. As I went outside to go play. As I walked up the front door to go play on the swings, I turned left to walk down the steps. I looked up and froze. There across the gravel driveway and slightly down the hill to the tree line, about 50 to 75 yards away, I saw 2 brown, 2 tan, hairy things standing on 2 feet there watching me from the tree line. I don't remember a lot of the details of the figure standing there, but I do remember this. One was much taller than the other, and the smaller one came up to about the taller one's mid-stomach. I also remember seeing darker to black coloration to where the face and hands would be, but no fine details. I'm tearing up as I write this, it's still so vivid. As I noticed the 2 things looking at me, I somehow became unfroze after what felt like minutes, but was only seconds, and turned around and I ran inside the house crying and screaming that there are bears outside. I went straight to my grandma's arms, she held me as I cried, and I tried to tell my parents and grandfather what I just saw. They went aside to look, but nothing. The only thing I got response was, there's no bears here. I've never seen one in all my years. And I was told to stop telling a fib. So from that point on, all I knew was I saw 2 weird colored bears. But I always knew there wasn't something right about these so-called bears. But I didn't know anything else at the time. I've always been fascinated about Sabe for some reason, and was always drawn to TV shows about them. And then I found your channel a few years ago, and that's when everything clicked, and I got that aha moment, or should I say, oh shit moment. I was listening to a story from one of the true hard-working, honest people here. The story was about someone as a child having something watching them as they played, and they said it was a bear to the parents as well, and how they didn't realize it was something else until they heard a story like theirs later in life. And it brought them right back to that day it happened, and they started crying without any control like they were there all over again. Well, exact same thing happened to me when it all clicked. I started crying uncontrollably and was brought right back to that day, and I knew at that point I'd seen no bear. There are 2 small populations of black bear in the state of South Carolina, one on the coastal plains near Charleston, and the other in the upstate of the state near where my experiences have happened. But I know this was no bear. Very rarely are they even seen around here, and even rarer are they a tan to brown in color. Another experience I've had there is I heard a tree falling behind my grandparents' house one day on the edge of the field. We went to go check it out. There in the field, a fully healthy green tree just pushed over, no wind, nothing. I chalked that up to a bear too until my oh shit moment years later. I've had weird things like being watched there many times, as well as finding a tree with a huge patch of bark missing, like it's been peeled off, strip by strip, about 8 feet up along an old logging road. About 8 feet up a tree along an old logging road. So this is a few of my experiences on this property, and I have a few more in other places, but that's for a later date. I finally took your advice and went to talk to a Cherokee elder that I know, and I've grown up the street from. He is a former Army Special Forces and has seen enough things for 1,000 lifetimes, Steve. This man is a true American hero and badass. I went to talk to him and ask a few questions, and come to find out he is also a medium and can see spirits and has seen actual open portals as well. He seems to understand them more than what he leads on. And now on to what he told me. He told me a few stories that were real eye-opening about us as a people and our true power. This was his own account and experience. A few years back, his sister was sick in the hospital, bad sick. He said she was mowing his grass one day with the push mower, and he just stopped. He said he knew he had to go see his sister somehow. He said he was mowing his grass one day with the push mower, and he just stopped. He said he knew he had to go see his sister somehow, so he went to clean up and go to the hospital and see her. When he got there to see her, she lifted a finger to tell him come closer, and this is what she said to him. I don't think you would hear me calling you over the sound of the lawnmower. Steve, my mouth fell wide open as he told me this. I couldn't believe, but at the same time, I do believe him and every word he spoke to me today. After that story, I asked him what he knows about mind speak. When I said that, he kind of chuckled and smiled. And then I told him that I heard from the people that tribes used to have full meetings that lasted days without saying a word. And then he said, yes, I've seen it. He told me when he was young, the elders would meet around a fire and sit there all night without saying a word until dawn. Just an acknowledgement here and there. He said at the time he didn't know why was going on, but he knew it was something he didn't want to interrupt. Crazy, I know. That's not the craziest thing he told me today. The last story he told me was about a young girl, about 45 years old, that went missing years ago when he was a young teenager. She'd fallen in the river on the reservation and was swept away. After news of this, every fit man on the reservation went to go upriver to start a search, working down. With no luck, someone said to get two elder tribal men they know. One was a World War I vet, missing both legs, and was brought in a wheelchair down to the river. The other ambled down with the help of a walking stick to the river to help the search. Both elders met up, they started talking, and one of the elders said to the other, I bet I could find her before you do. And the other said, you're on, and began the search again. The one elder with the stick walked down to the water, scooped some up, then wiped the water across his forehead and then tasted it. He then said, I believe she is somewhere upriver. The elder in the wheelchair said, yes, I agree. So they went up the river to continue the search. They came to another area upstream, and the man with the stick did the same thing. Took some water, rubbed it on his head, tasted it, and then said, I believe she is a little down. We went too far up. The elder in the wheelchair agreed. Again, as they went down a little ways, they stopped again in the stretch of the river that had some large boulders and one larger one. The one elder with the stick did the same thing with the water again, and this time said, here. And the other elder agreed again. They searched under and around all the rocks with no luck. Then the man in the wheelchair said, bring me some water, I bet I can find her. So the elder with the stick dipped his rag in the water, handed it to the elder in the wheelchair. He took the rag and started playing with it, rubbing it around and then rubbing it on parts of his body. But he did all this in a stage or sequence of 4, then said, she's under the larger rock. They checked there and with no luck found nothing. The two elders sat there pondering. Then, without saying anything, the one in the wheelchair grabbed the other's walking stick and threw it upstream in the river, then said, the stick will go to the rock she's under. The stick floated downstream and hit the longer rock first. So one of the young men checked again, still nothing. The elder in the wheelchair said, use that stick and check again. And sure enough, the young man went back down, came up and said, something is under there. And at least they found her body. Now, how on earth did two tribal eldermen find a missing girl under a rock in a river by just doing something with the water? How did those men have a tribal meeting without saying one single word? And how did my neighbor know his sister was calling him from the hospital? And how did she know he was mowing his yard when she cried out to him? Well, I honestly have no clue yet. But all this means we still have the power and capability to do things that we thought we lost touch to. And I truly believe we all have some of it, if not all of these capabilities, but have lost over the years of technology and government suppressing our true power and capabilities as humans. Now the real question, I'll leave you all with this. How do we get back in touch with our true selves and relearn these capabilities such as our sixth sense? I have a feeling I'm on the right trail here, and we'll be having another talk with the Cherokee elder down the street again here soon, as well as another tribal elder I know. And if and when I find out more, I will be in touch. Thanks again, Steve, for all you do. Nothing but best wishes and blessing upon you and your loved ones. Josh G., Western North Carolina. Josh, these are one of those emails where I go, thank God. You know? Thank God for emails like that, people like you, and especially the Cherokee Elder. If I could, I would I'd put my name on a list to see if I could sit down with that man for about a week straight and extract everything he knew. Oh no. Really? Seriously? Now you're a lapdog? Lap goat. I come to the conclusion quite a while ago that we've all had our true abilities wiped out of us, for certain. You look at what happens to people that don't comply, right? You look at the First Nations people, they didn't comply, they didn't conform. Look what happened to the majority of the First Nations people that don't, right? And the powers that be, the government, annihilates you. Annihilates them as a community, suppresses them, kicks them to the curb. Sure, if it wasn't for, back in the day, if it wasn't for the true good people on the earth, they probably would have just shot every one of the indigenous people in many continents and just eradicated them. Like they already tried, right? Let's get a little off topic. I'm quite certain that people who possibly are absolutely, truly more spiritual, possibly have a target on their heads from the current powers that be. That's what I think. But anyway, I am absolutely interested in what we possibly were born, the knowledge, the skills we're possibly born with, and I would absolutely love to hear more about it myself. So please keep us in the loop. Please spend some more time with those gentlemen and extract whatever knowledge you can from them and share it with the good people, okay? This goat's trying to make a bed on me. What do you want? They're like true children. They don't know what they want. Get out of here. This phone's almost dead, but I'm going to keep going. I hope these guys aren't too much of a crazy distraction while I'm reading these. They're pretty entertaining, though, aren't they? Alright, here we go. Well, this might be right on track. I don't know what this is about, but the title is What Have We Lost? It's funny how sometimes the emails line up with each other in topic. Knowledge delivery, isn't it? So you'd like to first say I appreciate you and applaud your efforts. I really dig your no bullshit attitude, your willingness to listen and absorb, and your drive to do it all. I get it, man. I feel the same way. I emailed you an experience I had a while back, but it didn't make the cut, and that's okay. I don't let that shit bother me. I just haven't got to it. There's no cut. Where'd I go? Sorry. You have asked a few times for those who have the wherewithal to dig into matters to share what we know about who we are and what capabilities we have lost. See, what are the random chances that this next email is on this topic, after what we just heard? It's very difficult to relate all that one has acquired in knowledge and experience in an email, but I'll start with this one, see how it goes. All right, I'm ready. With over 4,000 recognized religions in the world, there's no shortage of teachings on the origins of man and description of the abilities that we no longer seem to possess. However, for many years now, I've been on a quest to figure that out. I don't claim to have all the answers, and in fact, when I teach or speak, I don't ever expect anyone to blindly believe me. I just ask the people to listen, contemplate, and go search it out for themselves. That is what I've done over the last 30 years, and in doing so, I've come to the understanding that the more I learn, the more I realize I have much more to learn. But one thing I have discovered along the way is that we do possess enormous potential. That is the key word, potential. And that is the key word, potential. Steve, take any of the mighty trees of the forest and hold the seed of the same in your hand and just look at it. Within the seed is all the potential needed to become the mighty oak or beech or sequoia. It is only when that seed is pressed into the earth and the conditions are right that it will sprout, take root, and have the chance to fulfill all of its potential. That is what I and many, many others are searching out for humankind and doing our best to share. I've known since I was a young boy that who I see when I look in the mirror is not who I am. I understood back then that there are untapped capabilities that lie dormant within us. We simply have not been taught how to access and nurture those abilities. Without trying to convince anyone of anything, I share with the people the experiences that I have had in hopes it will cause some to be intrigued to seek. Each one must walk their own path, have his or her own experiences. Those, after all, are the best teachers, better than any amount of preaching or teaching that you can listen to. A person can surmise about something, but until someone has an experience, it's just a supposition or idea. However, when you walk through something for yourself, it becomes real to you, and no one can convince you differently. My wife puts it this way: you can talk someone out of an idea, but you'll never talk someone out of an experience. Words of truth. My very first experience. I grew up on a 40-acre farm with 2 brothers and 3 sisters, myself being the youngest. I spent most of my time outdoors, barefoot in the pastures or woods. Typically, while outside playing, I would be so engrossed in what I was doing, I wouldn't even stop to pee. I recall one particular time, after resisting the urge far too long, I felt like I was in my pants. I ran into the house to use the bathroom. As I was washing my hands, I glanced up and saw myself in the mirror. As I did, I instantly felt a presence. I can't explain the feeling, I just felt the presence of something. I heard a very clear and almost audible voice speak to me. It asked me a question: "Who are you?" I remember responding out loud, "I am Greg." And then it said to me, "If I took away your name, who are you?" I stood there for a few seconds contemplating the question. I understood somehow that the voice was asking this of me, not for its sake, but rather for mine. I was 8 years old. My understanding at this young age was being challenged. I remained standing there thinking, somehow, there was this deep, knowing deep within my heart that told me I was part and parcel of something much bigger, much more grand than this little person standing before me in the mirror. That day, the idea that I am eternal was sparked within me, and that ember has burned there ever since. This thought has been a guide for me over the 50 years, and over that time I've had a number of experiences that, looking back, were calling me to a deeper understanding of our place in the universe and what this life we live is really about. In more recent years, I began having very vivid dreams, and after the first one, I began journaling them. I'd been going through difficult times in my life and was questioning everything. I figured I'd had 2 choices: drown my sorrows in booze and shallow relationships, or dig my heels in, keep my footing, and look closer at what was happening to me and why. I chose to dig in and look closer. That decision kicked off a decade of internal searching and studying everything I could about us and myself. As I worked through much of my own personal pain, I began to uncover hidden truths. Steve, we do possess hidden abilities. I can't really say whether they have been lost through lack of use or intentionally suppressed, but one thing is for sure, that is, we have been dumbed down. Many of us live in a world that is saturated with services, devices, and machines that do almost everything for us. They make our lives so easy. Most of our survival skills and senses, our innate abilities, have been dulled. Abilities that some held generations ago have disappeared almost completely. But there's always a remnant of people who carry these abilities with them and pass them on to those who are willing and able to carry them. I'm going to share with you a very personal story involving myself, my youngest son, and my pops. One of, if not the most powerful experience I've ever had. There's proof to me that we have within us the power to change circumstances. It was the summer of 2005 on a warm and breezy afternoon. My 2 sons, Taylor and Matthew, who were 6 and 12 at the time, were with me out on my parents' farm. Matthew was with his grandma while I was working on my girlfriend's car in the barn. Taylor, my 6-year-old, was hanging out with his grandpa. They decided to take one of the tractors to do some cleanup around the yard. When they were done with that, Taylor told his grandpa that he wanted to drive the tractor by himself. He'd sat with his grandpa, nervous at times, steering and running all the controls, so Pops agreed, and the machine turned off, told him to climb up in the driver's seat. Because my son was so small, he couldn't sit on the seat and hold the clutch in. He had to stand up and put all his weight on it to hold it down. With him standing on the clutch, and in a moment of poor judgment, my father stepped in front of the rear wheel. Reached up and started the machine. As soon as the engine fired, my boy sat down. When he did, the clutch popped, and the machine lurched forward. The rear wheel striking my father knocked him on his back and under the right side of the machine. He tried to squirm his body towards the center, but the rear wheel had started to climb up his left leg. He twisted at the waist as the wheel passed over his hip. It was just far enough so as it crawled up his torso and over his left side, his shoulder, that the inside of the wheel scraped the left side of his face, pulling his glasses off, running him over. At some point, he let out a blood-curdling scream that I heard from the barn. I scrambled out from under the car I was working on, running to see what had happened. As I rounded the corner of the building, I was met by my son, running toward the barn, the tractor, with no driver, right behind him. I scooped him up, tossed him aside, jumped on the moving machine, shut it off. I turned and saw my father writhing around on the ground, trying to get up. I only in an instant was by his side, asking him to lay still and just breathe. He seemed to be hyperventilating. He was able to tell me the tractor had run up his entire left side and he couldn't breathe. In my mind, I thought I was going to watch my father die right in front of me. At that moment, everything stood still. I recall looking up to where my son had gone and noticed nothing was moving. Cottonwood seeds falling from the trees were in suspended animation. I heard no birds, there was no wind, no sound at all. I saw my boy was standing by the barn, motionless. I looked back down, told my pops to lay still, and I was going to pray for him. As I began to pray, a sound came from deep within my being. And what came out of me was a language that later my father described as heavenly. As I spoke, I placed my hands on different parts of his body and watched as the blue energy came out of my hands, went into his body. Whether I imagined the blue light or it actually happened, I can't tell you. The utterances lasted for maybe a minute or two, maybe less, I'm not sure. But when I stopped, my father lay there in a completely different state. He was calm, not hyperventilating and breathing normally. When I looked up again, everything was back to normal. I called my boy to come to my side and told him to run and get his grandma. Pops rushed to the hospital where they performed a CT scan of his entire body, found nothing broken, no damage whatsoever. Holy shit. Steve, he had been run over by a 3,900-pound machine just hours before, and when it was all said and done, he walked out of that hospital. A day in my life I'll never forget. I guess not. From that time, I continued my search and eventually came across a small set of books written over 100 years ago. The author is Baird T. Spalding. Mom's home. The goats are going to let you know it. Back in a minute. These guys aren't going to shut up. It is the written account of 11 practical and scientifically trained men who set out on a journey with one objective: to find the great spiritual teachers of the Far East and witness their uncommon abilities. In this series called The Teachings of the Masters of the Far East, there are many written accounts of miraculous events witnessed by these men firsthand. In one written account, a guru in one country entered into a state of meditation and communicated with one in another country, speaking to him and asking him to come. The account goes on to say that when the second guru received the word, he entered a state of meditation, raising the frequency or vibration of his physical body to the point where it disappeared. Transmuting time and space, he appeared to the side of the one who called him. He had, in a few hours, translated himself from one country to another. These same people demonstrated the ability to bring someone who had departed back to life. It's an excellent read for anyone who is seeking the truth about us and what we're capable of. Here's a link to a digital copy of the series. Hopefully I remember to put that link in the description below. This version is a little tough to read on a phone, but great on a tablet or computer. We've known scientifically for some time now that all matter is made up of energy. The frequency at which something vibrates can change how someone feels or even how it appears. Considering the account of the guru changing his physical state, I would like to present this hypothesis concerning the Sabbath. Could it be that they control the state of their being and raise or lower their frequency, allowing them to be translated from one place to another with absolute ease? I've heard you tell through your emails that some in the scientific community have claimed that the hair on the bodies of these beings can act as a sort of a cloaking device to hide themselves from people. What if what actually happens is they raise their vibration at will to a frequency that is not visible to the human eye? It has been told that Jesus could enter a room without anyone seeing him come through any door. He appeared walking alongside two of his disciples on the road to Emmaus. There are many stories I could share with you and your audience about the life of this beautiful being, the Savior of this world, but just a couple points that I want to make today. Number one, that we all have the same potential as Jesus. In Romans 8, verse 29, it says, because whom he did foreknow, God knows all men. He also did foreappoint conformed to the image of his Son, that he, Jesus, might be firstborn among many brethren. That's us, if we choose. He, Jesus, was not a Christian. He was not attached to all the dogma of religion then, and is not today, and neither should we. He was one that understood that way, the way, and showed it. It's why I left the organization church system in favor of learning and demonstrating the way. Action, power, and authority teaches far better than words. The reason that we are not capable of doing the same is because we live in a world of sensory overload. Instant gratification with no effort at all. We are bombarded by information at every turn. Whether it's a constant barrage of advertisement while surfing the internet or simply going out to dinner, going to many eating establishments or sports bars, and you'll often find 20 televisions all broadcasting something different. I count in one establishment almost 50 TVs. It's crazy. Again, sensory overload, keeping the mind occupied / entertained. Oftentimes, when people come to our home for help or for counseling, we will give them homework that we ask them to do. Usually means quietening their mind and becoming still, almost without fail. The primary question is, how do I shut my brain off? It's nearly impossible to do when your brain has been conditioned to always be receiving some kind of input from outside stimuli. The answer is always the same. It takes work, commitment, and willingness to forego turning on the TV or surfing the web in lieu of spending time turning within. To summarize, Steve, each and every one of us is built within us the ability to do amazing and miraculous things. Believe it or not, knowing what he did, what is recorded about his demonstrations, Jesus would go on to say in John 14:12, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do shall he do also, and greater works than these shall he do. My second and final point is, we are not bound to this three-dimensional realm, and the true essence of our being is light and energy. Divine life living in us as us. Let that sink in. Steve, I hope this begins to shed some light on the subject for you and others. Please note there are many of us that have your back. Again, peace to you, Sarah, and the kids. Take care of those big, beautiful, sacred dogs. Nemo, Greg Nemechek, Coopersville, Michigan. Greg, thanks for that, man. Appreciate it. And there's a lot in there to soak in, and a lot people should pay attention to, as far as I'm concerned. Big time. Keep emailing in, all right? We need all the knowledge we can get from the people right now, especially. I gotta go real quick, and I'll be back. All right, here we go. One more. Oh. Horses are out now. Goats are out. Sarah's back, so it'll be a little more easier to focus here. Two experiences / encounters is the title of this next one. My apologies for sending to the wrong email address. I checked multiple videos and the bio for an email to send stories, but didn't see one. I guess I should probably put that in there, huh? So I checked your website, sent it to that email. I just heard the email to send to at the end of one of your videos. Sending to the correct email now, hopefully. Alright, sorry, I'll try to straighten that out, make it easier for people. Hi, Steve, my name's Sarah. I just recently found your channel and immediately subscribed. Thank you for hosting a channel that allows people to share their experiences regardless of the backlash you receive for doing so. I know it's hard, but try not to let them get to you. It's exactly what they want. I have two experiences. First one took place in Germany when I was 8. My dad was in the Air Force and was stationed there for a couple of years. We don't live on the base the first year, but instead out in the country, in a farmhouse surrounded by acres of fields and forests. My favorite animal from the time I can remember was horses. Never had dolls or Barbies, only those plastic horses in every color and breed there was. Straight across the highway from our house was a hill with acres of pasture where people would board the horses. There would be anywhere from 5 to 15 horses out there at a time, and this was where I spent my days. My mother would constantly freak out and panic because she would look out the window and see me either sitting or laying on these horses' backs while they were laying down. I knew these horses would never hurt me, and the horses knew that I would never hurt them because I loved them. I loved all animals. Behind our house was hundreds of acres, some open fields, some forested. I was not a typical 8-year-old little girl. I was an explorer. So during the times when the horses were not across the street, I would venture in the wilderness out back, spending hours and even the entire day alone out exploring. I never had any fear out there alone. At one time, there was a rumor going around that a lone wolf was killing livestock in the area. Despite my mother's wishes, this did not keep me from doing my daily explorations. A wolf was an animal. I loved all animals. One day I was heading back home after spending most of the day out exploring. I was walking back through an open field, not a care in the world. To the right of me was a large forested area that I had explored many times before. I was still a ways from home, and when I had an uneasy feeling come over me, like I was being watched, compelling me to look into the forest, I turned to my right, and in the forest were two huge red glowing eyes staring back at me. I was frozen, standing there alone, still far from home. I don't know if I lost time or not. I did not have a watch on, nor even knew what time it was, other than it was late in the day but still light out. At some point, it was like I all of a sudden snapped out of it, unlocked my eyes from it, and ran as fast as I could home without ever looking back. Now, at the time, being 8 years old and the rumors of a lone wolf in the area, I believed it was a wolf. As an adult, going back to that experience and thinking logically that a wolf's eyes do not glow red, plus the eyes were not low, they were very high up, almost mid-forest, I'm not sure what I encountered, but it was not a wolf. At least not a typical wolf. There was no light for eye shine, as it was cloudy day, and I've never seen any animal's eyes glow red in a light, only bright white. I've never told anyone about this experience because I knew I wouldn't be allowed to go out exploring anymore. I live in Washington State now, and my husband is an avid hunter and works in the woods. I accompany him often and have seen many wild animals throughout our times in the mountains. I've never seen red glowing eyes once since that day. My second story takes place back in the States, in Texas. My grandparents had a bay house that I would stay at with them quite often. One day when I was about 11 years old, I was out venturing by the little beach area nearby. I was on my way back to the house when out of the field to my right I saw a huge black cat walk out about 20 to 30 feet in front of me. My first thought was, that's a black panther. I stood there and watched it walk away until it disappeared and vanished. I was completely fascinated. I told my family what I had seen, but was met with disappointment, as they all told me that I had just seen a big dog. I've been an animal enthusiast since a young child. I know, and knew then, the difference between a cat and a dog. This was a sleek, coated, pure, black, huge cat. Its tail was that of a cat's, not a dog. Its face, when it looked back at me, was that of a cat, not a dog. Its ears were short and more rounded as a cat's, not long and tall as a dog's. Its walk was that of a cat's, not a dog. Regardless, no one believing me, I know what I saw that day. I know people have seen the same. You're all good. The powers that shouldn't be have been profiting off our ignorance for way too long, keeping us in the dark and using fear to strip us of our freedom, as well as control us, playing God, so to speak, keeping us imprisoned mentally in a prison with no walls. We have been and still are being lied to about his story and much more, including our existence on this planet, as well as the existence of other highly intelligent beings, which I believe are interdimensional, and explains why and how they can just vanish without a trace. I've known since I was a child that this is not what this world is supposed to be like. I've always known that I was here for a reason, for a time, and that time is now. One of my gifts, if you want to call it that, is psychic abilities. I prefer to call it a knowing, but it doesn't work like they show us in movies, at least not for me, as I have no control over it. It is my belief that we're going through a time, a cycle, that has happened many times throughout his story, when these dimensions merge. I think we're only just beginning to see things, much more to come in the near future, that will shock many, causing many hearts to fail them. Stay strong, stay vigilant, stay safe, everyone. No fear, peace and love to all. Sarah C's. Kind of off topic, you can share this part if you like, up to you. I'd add a link to two videos on my channel, one of a cigar-shaped object parked by the moon that I caught myself and personally saw with my own eyes before I started recording. The second one was taken by my husband when he was at work one day, of a bright orb that disappeared. It was witnessed by him and a co-worker. Thank you again and take care, Steve. Okay, there's two links here. Like I said, I rarely get to, because what I got to do here, I might be able to do this. It's just difficult, because once I leave here, go in, pull the SD card out, slam it in the computer. It's the notes that the notes transferred to verbally onto the computer, right? So not the links. And then I got to hook up my phone to the... Anyways, we'll see if I can pull it off. I don't think you said the name of your channel, did you? I don't think you did. Alright, we'll figure it out. Anyway. Okay, I gotta go on. This phone's redlining it now. What was I gonna say? Shit, I was gonna tell you guys something. Oh yeah, we were looking into... I forget the name of the video. We were watching a video on Netflix last night about fasting. And holy shit, is there a pile of information on fasting. That's one helpful tip I can offer up to everybody right now if you want to look into fasting. There is a fact there. I was still pretty sick yesterday, last night, half asleep watching it. Sarah really watched most of it. There's a fact there about what fasting does and how it eliminates the cells in our body that host cancer. It's a proven fact that fasting can eliminate up to 70% of the cancer cells that may possibly be within us. So check it out, you guys. All right, we're going to do it. We already started. We're going to start practicing fasting. And it has proven to be a very, very helpful move for human beings. And the doctor also said why it isn't being promoted is because it doesn't make hospitals money. Go figure. I'll be back.